Good evening, my fellow infected psychopaths. Today I'll be injecting you with the insanity that is my voice. Let's get started. You know, this is fun and all, but animator, can you be a deer? Can you be an honest lamb and draw me a gun here so I can shoot these bastards? Nice. What's up? Son of a bitch!
He's using an old-crafted weapon. Take him out.
Unbelievable! I would have been still kicking if I had a better handgun. I mean, look at this same fellow infected psychopath. The battery case overheats, the trigger jammed, which makes this thing impossible to shoot. This thing seriously needs an update. Luckily, I'm working on something. Give us a montage, please.
What's going on right now? What else can you say? How should we master this? It's only the beginning. That's to come before the storm. But we hold on and stick together. We've already made it this far. We will not give up right now. This is the chance we've been waiting for. Now we pull the rudder.
This, my fellow infected psychopath, is the new handguns I like to call the Elite Pistol, named after one of the enemies from Halo. Not to mention it looks very similar to the Magnum from the same game. This gun will ensure to put a few holes in your enemies, especially Steve. Just like I said earlier, the gun definitely needed a new design. The original gun wasn't terrible by means, but it was definitely cumbersome to use. It was a great starting point for what you see before you, but it definitely needs some improvements. The trigger was probably the biggest change. The trigger on this handgun uses a gear system rather than a lever system like in the original handgun. On the old handgun, it uses a lever system to push the projectile from the magazine into the flywheels. Speaking of which, the flywheels has also been changed or modified to suit my needs. For those who don't know, flywheels are basically two motors spinning in one direction. When a projectile is pushed towards the flywheels, it flings the projectile outwards, firing the weapon. Another one of the biggest change that I definitely made compared to my other flywheel guns is probably changing the actual wheels of the flywheels. You see, I glued some sponges on the outside flywheels and tape a layer of duct tape around it. This is to give it like the flywheels a more squishy, spongy texture, so that way the projectile will actually fling out. The flywheel will actually grab onto the projectile, pushing it out. The reason for this change was because on my original, the flywheels actually just had duct tape on it, no sponges glued on. Duct tape being just on the flywheels and not gluing down the sponges at the time was good. but it has some issues. The more I use the gun with this method, the duct tape will actually wear and tear from the projectiles. Not only does the new method make the gun shoot farther, but it also helps not tear down the outer duct tape covering. The last problem I had to fix was the battery box. The gun uses 2 IMAR batteries. These batteries are excellent in most of my guns, mostly because they have a lot of power and they can be recharged for later use. However, with the battery box configuration, the battery box always overheat, always on the negative terminal. This can actually be a safety hazard. You do not want the IMAR battery heating up. Otherwise, let's just say there could be some hazardous explosions. There's so much current coming from the batteries to the electronics, the battery box will actually heat up on the weakest point, which was the negative terminals. Mostly because negative terminals contain a spring because it uses a thin spring. To solve this issue, I basically modified the battery box slightly by removing the spring and screwing on a bolt and soldering on the negative terminals. This allowed me to use the gun without the battery box overheating or heating up at all.
We've already made it this far. We will not give up right now. This is the chance we've been waiting for. Now we pull the run around back into the light, and we will bring the motion. That's the power of voices. And one thing I can promise you, we feel the light again.
Distance is 19 to 22 feet or 5.7912 to 6.7056 meters.
That's the calm before the storm, but we hold on and stick together. We've already made it this far. We will not give up right now. This is the chance we've been waiting for. Now we pull the run around back into the light, and we will bring the motion. That's the power of voices. That's the power of voices. There's one thing I can promise you, we feel the light again. Together against the flood of the sign, nothing pulls us down anymore. We face the coming storm, from the darkness back into the light.
And that's all the time we have today for this class of Arsenal. Tune in for my next project where I show you a shotgun-like rifle that I've been working on. Make sure to like and subscribe. Also hit or shoot the notification bells. Also be sure to check out my social media pages. Links in the description of course. Until next time, see you later you psychopaths.